Welcome back to another episode, everyone. We are so thrilled to have this guest on today. He is captivating and talented and kind, and he's a Jimmy Award winner. Everybody, please welcome former lead in Dear Evan Hansen on Broadway and the first teenager to play Evan on Broadway, Andrew Feldman.
What a that lovely intro. That made me so happy. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
We're
Oh,
so
we couldn't
happy
be
to have you
happier.
on.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Um, okay, so like I said, you are a Jimmy Award winner.
Right.
Congratulations, that's
Thank you.
huge.
What
It's
a
crazy.
crazy experience.
It was bananas. It's boot camp is actually for real what it is. It was 14-hour days
That's
uh,
insane.
every day for a week. It was bananas, but it was the best
Yeah,
ever.
I
That's
couldn't
bananas.
imagine. You met so
So,
many great people along the way of that as well, right?
Yeah, one of my closest friends, Emily Escobar, who is a finalist, is now like we collaborate all the time on stuff, and Renee Rapp, obviously, who won with me, is also one of my closest friends, and that's sort of how I met Antonio as well, who's in Jagged Little Pill, and so and
Ah,
tons more. So there's so many amazing people in that circuit that I was so lucky to get to meet from that.
yeah,
aw.
that's awesome.
So I read somewhere that at the Jimmy Awards, the lead producer for Dear Evan Hansen happened to be in the audience and was
Yeah,
absolutely amazed and stunned by you. From that point to you being a super talented high schooler acting in school theater to you being a super talented high schooler acting as the lead in an award-winning Broadway show, what transpired from that point to that point?
whoa, that's a great question. Okay, so the way it all kind of happened is yeah. So it just happened to be sponsored by Dear Evan Hansen. That week that we were doing the Jimmys, we all went to see Dear Evan Hansen. Like they
No
Wow.
way.
they they'd see a show every year, and now it's Dear Evan Hansen every year because Dear Evan Hansen like sponsors the Jimmy Awards every year. Um,
Oh.
and so we all went to see Taylor and Dear Evan Hansen. And it was unreal. It was my third time seeing it. I think I've always loved the show, but and so yeah, Stacy Mindich, the lead producer, was in the audience. Tara Rubin, the casting director, was a judge. And the legend that she tells to me, I've never heard anything otherwise, is that she texted Tara at intermission and said, "We need to get him in the room. That's our next guy." And they did. It was like 2 weeks later that they'd called me back for. It was actually the male swing. So it was Evan, Jared, and Connor. I'm pretty sure
Oh
they
wow.
only did that not to scare me because I am not a Connor. Like that should not and will not ever happen. Um, but it was pretty much I realized pretty quickly that the callback that I had was like most people's final callback was the equivalent to like
Wow.
I was in front of Michael Greif, Benj Pasek, Justin Paul, Stephen Levinson, Alex Lackamore, Stacy, the whole team.
Jeez.
I was freaking the heck out. And
I can only
but oh my god,
imagine.
it was so wonderful and that was that was when it all kind of happened. It was like 2 days later that I found out that I was cast, and then between that was in July of 2018, and it wasn't announced till November. So I
Wow.
had to, and I
Good.
signed all sorts of NDAs because they really wanted it to be like a big New York Times thing. So it was actually going to be announced in January of 2019, but it started to sort of creep. The news sort of started to creep out, so they made it earlier so that they could get the jump on it. Thank God. Um,
Wow.
which yeah, it was
That's a tough
a crazy
secret to
thing to do.
keep.
It really was, and
Yeah.
that was sort of the big thing that everyone latched onto in the stories. Was like, you actually didn't tell anyone? And I was like, I didn't tell anyone because they told me not to. I signed legal documents saying that I couldn't. So it was
Exactly.
it was crazy. And it was taking all kinds of voice lessons. They were like truly in just. I started taking voice lessons with Liz Kaplan, the vocal consultant, in
Yes. Queen.
September, October. She's amazing. It was like September, October. There were placements and things that I didn't find until the week before. So if I had
Oh
started a
wow.
week later, it would have been a completely different experience, and it could have been a lot less healthy in the first couple weeks and months. It's crazy how every little thing, every caution that was taken added so much to my being able to do it successfully. It was the craziest thing that ever happened.
Yeah, the show itself is such a vocally demanding and emotionally demanding role. I have to ask, did you have any tips or tricks to preserve your voice?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of the expectation for all Evans that I definitely followed is I completely changed my diet. I didn't talk or go out really at all. Um, it was a constant battle of that sort of staying mentally healthy in not being in like going out a little bit, but like not talking when I do and not eating dairy or by the end of it, I was pretty much eating the same thing every day, which was
Mm.
crazy. Um, but that was kind of it. And then it was also just allowing yourself to not be 100%. I started doing 5 shows a week rather than the typical six of an Evan because I was in school, because I was building up all this stamina. I didn't start doing six until I was out of school over the summer. And then I stayed that when I went back to school. I was being tutored. I wasn't actually like going to school, but still, it was like another part-time job, and
Exactly.
so I started doing 5 shows a week. There were some keys that were lowered, some placements that were changed. By the end of my run, everything was back up in the original keys. Every placement was back where it was originally, meant to be. Um,
It's insane.
so it was such a gradual process. So I think give yourself time is really my biggest piece of advice.
Wow. Yeah, you mentioned that you had to completely change your diet. I was reading someplace that you were, when you left the show, while it was bittersweet, you were excited to eat pizza again.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
Does
had
that have, does that
no,
have
I
to
had
do with preserving the voice?
Yeah, I didn't have dairy at all. I did have a slice of cheesecake every Sunday because I had enough time between Sunday and Tuesday.
You
But
gotta have a slice of cheesecake every
had to have
Sunday.
a slice, and I didn't even really like cheesecake before doing this, but I just like so all of a sudden really just wanted my dairy fix. But anyway, I think it was 6 slices of pizza at the party after my last show. I'm hungry from the
Oh
whole
my
year.
God.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, it was exciting to kind of go back to normal life and see my friends who I hadn't really gotten to see all year. It's been nice, now they're sort of taken away from me again, but we've all been zooming every day to stay in contact,
Aw.
so it's nice.
Andrew, can I ask? So I was actually there when Sydney saw your last performance. I was with that like group. There was like a whole bunch of us, and it was absolutely like incredible.
Thank you.
And the fact that you said that, at the beginning some things were different. It was interesting to hear that because I mean, obviously it was towards the end of your run, so we didn't notice.
Yeah.
Can you talk
By
a
the
little bit
way,
about
by
your
the
like?
way, you were incredible. You
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely
you
wrecked
guys.
us.
That's
it
so
was
kind. It
insane.
means so much to me.
Talk a
Thank you
little
guys so
bit
much.
about like how, so you said the keys and stuff changed, but talk about how you as like the character also changed
Oh,
throughout the
yeah.
process.
I think I still felt all this pressure up to the very last day, but
Mm.
I think there was I felt a pressure to prove myself, to keep just work so hard for the tears and the ticks and all these things, and over time, the biggest change was that it just got so much simpler. It just became so much more in my body and smaller and all these just more you could latch onto it so much more just from little things actually connecting to what the anxiety was rather than showing it. If I'm connecting to it, it's there. So that was a challenge for me because that's wasn't really something I ever imagined it being, but what was I never imagined it being described as simple, but it was. That's sort of where it got to. And I think what was at the core of Evan, though, never changed. I think the biggest thing was at the beginning, I was really trying to blur the lines for myself between me and him, and really trying to like get into his shoes and be really method about it, which was just unhelpful and unhealthy and all these things. And by the end, it felt more like I just knew him as a person so well, as another person. Like he was like my best friend. I
Aw.
still don't really know how it happened, how I connected with him so much from the start, but I think what was at the core never really changed. It was just how I showed it that changed.
That's
Interesting.
so beautiful.
Yeah.
You just
It
got
was
to know him more and more.
yeah, it was so special. It was
Oh.
he's a special person.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was the best year. It was terrifying and exhausting and stressful, but it was the best. It was so wonderful.
Did you actually like go to a school, or were you doing like online school?
Yeah, so I was being tutored while all this was happening. I was getting tutored 15 hours a week, and that was it. But I was taking all IP courses my
Oh
senior
God.
year. So it
No
was
way.
real school. It was, there was no slacking. It was a lot, but I think everyone sort of had an understanding of the limits of everything, and that do I couldn't do like homework and stuff, because when am I gonna do that? I
Yeah.
do school, I get in the car, I go to the theater. So I think
Mm.
we all sort of got on the same page about what it had to be and how much I could actually do. But in terms of sitting there actually doing it, it was hard work. It was real work.
Yeah, along with giving your all in theater, you doing all AP courses, you gave your all in school, and it paid off because you're going to Harvard.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
I am.
incredible.
Congratulations.
Thank
Oh
you
my
guys.
gosh.
I'm really, really, really excited for that whole, just that experience. I can't wait. It's
Has
gonna
that
be
been like
really.
a dream school of yours?
I was never. It's funny, when I was younger, I was always like dead set on going to a conservatory. I was like, this is my path, and my mom was like, no, because my mom was a college admissions counselor, so she was like, no, you have to go to liberal arts
Oh.
school and like have a fallback plan. And I never agreed with her until I did Dear Evan Hansen. I was like, okay, I'm in conservatory right now. I don't need to go to another one to learn the things that I'm learning now. Not that I know everything, but just that it's like I'm in a conservatory now, essentially. Uh, so then I started looking at the schools that she'd wanted me to be looking at, all the Ivies and the liberal arts schools, and Harvard was the one where they have a program, a concentration called Theater, Dance, and Media is the name of it. And you can take classes in directing, writing, dramaturgy, performing, puppeteering, improv, everything. So that was it. That was like,
Wow.
okay, that's what I have to do, because that's what I already do, is I do everything. So I wanna learn how to do everything equally, rather than focusing on performing or composition or anything. I want to learn everything. So I'm really excited about it.
That's awesome.
That's very interesting. Also, because you basically like had a kind of master class or almost a college course as Dear Evan Hansen.
Yeah, I mean, I
You
learned
kind of
from
know what I
Michael Greif.
mean.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Michael Greif. I had the best. There's no better professor than that. It was Michael Greif School of being Evan Hansen. And he's so passionate about the show, which is amazing. How like he is so involved with the show still, Michael, and he's a legend. So it was incredible to get to really really work with him and get to know him. I'm still so thankful for that.
Yeah, that's
All
awesome. It's
right. So
such
you
a
kind of
great.
acted as like a bit of a mentor.
Absolutely. I mean they all kind of were. I being able to sort of track their respect for me was really special. I think everyone had respect for me from the beginning. I never felt disrespected by anyone, but I think everyone was wary at first and worried about, is this actually going to work? Is casting a kid? It was an experiment almost, and it worked, and see, having their respect meant the world, and their pride, and they're always, everything that I needed to hear from them in my last couple weeks. I heard everything that was. I'm so, like, we are so thankful that you were part of this. Everything that I really needed to get closure on the whole thing was there, and that was, I that's immeasurable.
Well, to anyone who had absolutely any doubts, you proved anyone who had any possible slight doubt, you proved them wrong, and you absolutely blew it out of the park.
Thank you very very much. That
Definitely.
means a lot.
Yeah, I mean, and especially like working with that creative team. I mean, there really isn't anyone better to like learn
There
from.
isn't, and they're all still, they come to the show all the time, and I, you know, they built London, and as soon as they were done with London, they came back and watched it here and noted it here like a lot. They're always, Michael's really really meticulous, and so he's not giving up on that. It's the same thing with Rent. Even
Mm.
you look at the people who were in Rent, the final cast. He was giving them all sorts of notes and being there every single, not every day, but really often. Um, So he's amazing. He's wonderful, and he's just so right.
That's
Everything
awesome.
he says is so right. Yeah,
Yeah, and now you're gonna go to Harvard, and I believe the artistic director there is Diane Paulus,
that's
and
right. Yeah.
who's another like an incredible director. I was able to work with her on Pippin and Finding Neverland, and she is, like you said about Michael, she's such a mentor to me that I can consistently look up to.
Yeah, I can't wait to learn from her. She's been teaching a class. I actually don't remember what it is, but it was so fascinating when I was reading about it. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, book of knowledge for
Yes,
sure.
Yeah, I can't wait for that whole experience.
It must be
absolutely.
so exciting.
I know, right? So, another thing that some of the Evan Hansens have been kind of open about is, and it's something that we kind of touched on earlier, is that Dear Evan Hansen, it's a very emotionally demanding role, and he's someone who struggles with anxiety and stuff like that. Um, it can, as an actor, sometimes it can be, once you get like super 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 invested in the role, it can be sometimes, hard to kind of like, back away from all that and really protect your own mental health. Was there anything that you did to kind of make sure that you were staying, along with, being physically healthy and all those precautions, mentally healthy as well?
Yeah, the cast when I was coming in always talked a lot about how we goof around backstage to sort of lighten the mood. Evan doesn't get to go backstage all that much, so it was.
On stage, like,
And I also just kind of had, like, at the beginning, I had a bit of a distaste for that because I was like, no, I have to do this right. I have to do this perfectly. And then there were nights where I'd get home and not super be sure which one I was.
Mm.
Which was scary. Um, so then I sort of, once I started, it was pretty quickly that I started goofing around with everyone else. And then that was when I was able to really open up to the whole thing and say, it's okay if I'm not like crying in my dressing room before the show. You know what I mean? Like I'm allowed to go out and do it and learn as I'm doing it, and that's okay, so that I can do it tomorrow. It was that kind of thing. Just talking to people. I did start going to therapy, not because of Evan, but that helped so much. In the fall, I started going toward the end of my run, and that was so helpful in terms of like, okay, this is enough. Like I don't need to. I think the biggest challenge for me was being okay with my performance. I was always trying to make it better, which is totally normal. That's what you should be doing. But I was always just sort of insecure about it. So once I started going to therapy, it was okay. What I'm doing is enough. What I'm doing is okay, and that was really crucial to finishing out my run.
for
Yeah.
sure. And it's so easy to beat yourself up.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, even if everyone around you is going like, "Oh my gosh, you're doing amazing, you're doing amazing, you're doing amazing," it's this kind of self-doubts and like, "Oh no, I'm not doing enough," that really get to you. Do you have any, I guess, advice when you first started the run? Do you have any advice for your younger self?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Just I mean I would say like it's enough. You don't need to keep putting on and on. You know this person so well, better than you think you do. Like, just what you're doing is enough. You don't need to add and add and add. Keep it to yourself. Keep it all within yourself, and that was an important lesson to learn.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. I know I couldn't. I applaud you because as I'm 16, gonna be 17. Like I'm still dealing with my voice change, and it's just crazy that you were able to just like jump in and.
I was too. I was too. That was where a lot of the lower stuff came in because my larynx hadn't. I mean, it's still not fully dropped in, but it hadn't dropped in like at all until a month or two into my run. So it was
Mhm.
constantly just learning and following what my body was wanting to do. And okay, this day I can't do this placement. Let me try this. And being okay with giving 100% of whatever percent you have. That was difficult to learn because this isn't a role you can do below like 70%. So trying to really really amp up whatever I could do, and also knowing when to say, okay, I can't do the show today, which thankfully didn't happen too much to me. But there were days where I'd be sick and still be trying to do it, and I'm like, no, I just can't. This isn't gonna work. It was a question of, am I the most qualified person to tell this story today? That was really the question I would ask myself, and there were days when the answer was no, and that was okay.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that makes perfect total sense. And also something that Dear Evan Hansen built a really big fan base, and the show really impacted a lot of people. And you know, I'm not sure if you went to the autograph line or not, but did you have any memorable and impactful fan encounters, whether they be from DMs or whether someone stopped you on the street and just told you how impactful Dear Evan Hansen was to them?
Yeah, I'd hear at least like twice a week, "This show saved my life,"
Wow.
or "You changed my life," or my favorite one was when a parent would say like, "You nailed my son," or something like that. That was
Oh
always
my
really,
gosh.
really, really special to me. One of the ones I'll never forget was there was someone who came to the stage door and said, "Can you sign my cut arm?" And it was an arm that was covered in scars, and I was like, "Yes, of course," and I signed it, and I just think about that all the time because that was someone who clearly this show means something to them, and they didn't let go from the tree. You know, they came out on the other side and are listening to the words that Benj and Justin and Steven wrote, and that's I think that was a responsibility that I was really aware of from the beginning, and was terrifying, but was so special to deliver every night.
Wow, that made me want to cry.
I
Oh
know,
my
I have
gosh.
It
chills.
was it
I
was
I
it
was
was
about to say I
special.
have chills too. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's there were I was fortunate that there was never anything too there were never any like really scary fan encounters in terms of people who, I mean, there are always the weird ones, right? Like for anyone, there's the people who are asking for a little too many hugs or something. There's all sorts of weird stuff. But I think something that I always try to do is just make sure the person who's, there might be someone like just pouring their life story out to me at the stage door, and I just do everything I can to make them feel seen and heard and bring them back to reality and outside of the world of the show. I think that was always sort of my goal for those kinds of things. When someone's like sobbing at the stage door, just making sure they're seen and heard.
That is
Yeah.
so beautiful. And it's
Special.
also that's you using the platform that you've been given and making a difference to even one person's life, because like I can't even imagine how much just you looking at them and looking at them straight in the eye and listening to them and listening to their story and making them feel heard. I can't even imagine how much that would impact them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a special opportunity to get to give that to a number of people. That was really, really special.
And I also think people underestimate how much fans can impact us as performers.
Oh yeah. Especially the thing that I think they don't know, that the fans don't know, is that we aren't like Chris Evans or something. Like
Not at all.
we see the comments, we see what you guys are saying, and it means a lot when it's nice. I mean, when it's not nice, that's another thing. But like at the same time, like we see it, like we see what is being said, and that it usually it means so much to me to see like all these wonderful comments and
Definitely
things like
keeps you
that.
going, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
On
So,
okay.
Eli, if you have another question, I would love to play around with Alyssa with him.
Yeah, I do have another question.
Okay, go with your
Not
question.
really a question, but yeah. Um, so you've been doing some pretty like incredible things during this time in quarantine, and obviously, like this is kind of why Sydney and I are making this podcast because we want to give people another source of entertainment, and it seems they're doing a lot of that with your Jackbox, and you're even making songs that you're putting out there.
Yeah.
And I have to say, your last song that you wrote, "Every Pretty Girl," or that you posted, it's so beautiful, and it's
Thank you
hasn't
so much.
gotten out of my head. Yeah, it's so good.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you very
You're
much,
welcome.
You're so insanely talented. It's insane.
guys.
What
I'm no, you say what you were gonna say first.
what inspired you to like I don't know, write and create the Jackbox and that whole scenario?
Yeah, Jackbox is something that I've been doing with my friends for years and years and years. I sort of stumbled on it on like the Xbox store when I was 14 and was obsessed. It's so up my alley, like a party game. I love just playing host. So that kind of thing was really up my alley, and so my friends and I, it's like a staple of our friend group is playing these games, and so I just sort of had this idea one day, like, oh my God, people would love it if we just got a bunch of Broadway people to play Jackbox. And we did one stream that night that I decided, like, we should do this. I just sort of texted everyone that I knew and was like, if you want to do this, come do it. And a couple people said yes, thankfully. And the next morning, I woke up to a bunch of texts from Alex Boniello saying, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to use this to raise money for the Actors Fund. I'm going to handle the finances. You keep doing what you're doing. We'll both work on getting people. Let's make this a thing. And then it was. And now it's become this huge thing with like people making like Redbubble merch and like a solid base of like 500 people that'll watch every episode no matter who's on. It's amazing. And we've raised now I think it's almost, if not over $30,000, which is
Wow,
crazy.
for
Yes.
you guys.
It's
Yes.
absolutely bananas. It's been so special. It's been so much fun to just kind of creating this like joke base of using our silliness for good. It's been really fun.
That's amazing. That must be also like fulfilling too.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
Eli's mom also works on the front lines.
Oh, that's amazing.
So yeah, so we're talking, and you can jump. I'm definitely not going to speak for you, but you were kind of talking about how whenever you see people doing this kind of stuff and helping people, it hits close to home because it's like a personal thing for you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I even something little as clapping at 7 o'clock at night, when everyone's out there, it's I have a balcony, so I can open my door, and it's like, it's so it just makes me and my family like tear up almost every night because we're like, wow, like these people are recognizing the hard work that's being done right now, and they're appreciating that those people that deserve the recognition that don't get it.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
It's that whole thing, the applause, because we do Jackbox at like 6 to 7:30, so around 7 from like two people's houses, we'll just hear this thunderous applause over the stream,
it's
which is
beautiful.
amazing. Yeah, it's
Wow,
always so special.
Yeah,
that
for
is
sure.
so special.
And
Yeah.
that's another thing about joining the podcast that we do, being with Broadway Podcast Network, we thought they were perfect because they're doing so much stuff for the Broadway Cares Act Big Fight Takeover, organization, and the Actors Fund, and all of that. So, yeah, it's great to see how this community has come together and really, just try to help each other out.
Yeah, it's been, see, everyone is just working their hardest to, because the thing is everyone is someone's favorite person. You know what I mean? So like at least one person is so happy that so and so just put out a new video or like organized their friends to sing a song, like it's amazing. Everyone is doing something for everyone, and that's what's been really really amazing to watch amidst all this.
Absolutely. I actually have another question. Um, actually, because it kind of ties into one of the questions that we got.
Go for it.
Uh, okay, so Eli and we tried this in one of the other things. We're going to keep trying it and see if it works. Um, when we were trying to come up with names for our podcast, we were trying to combine our names, Eli and Sydney.
Got it.
Obviously, our podcast name is now Take a Bow, so you see how that went. Um, however, my mom one day was like, if you combine Eli and Sid, it's like Eli Sid, but it's kind of like elicit, which is kind of like elicit a response.
Oh,
So,
sure.
I thought that was pretty clever. So, what Eli and I did was we got on our social medias and we posted on our stories like, hey, we're going to be doing this podcast and we're going to have guests on from the business. And any possible questions that you have, please send them, and then we'll write them all down. And then, as guests come on our show, we will ask them a few questions. So it's not exactly like a speedy thing. It's not exactly like a, what is it called?
Like a speed round or whatever.
like a speed round.
Sure.
Yeah, something like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be that, but these are questions from fans, so I thought that was really
Cool.
interesting. Okay, so this is the first one that I have for you. Are there any other areas of the industry that you're especially interested or involved in besides acting?
Yeah, I do write. I have there's a play that I'm working on right now that I've written with
No
I
Gabby
can't
way!
Caruba.
believe I forgot to mention this. Your Star Wars show.
Oh yeah,
Oh my god.
that too. Yeah, I write music as well. I wrote that Star Wars show with my friend Adrian in 8th grade, and then we did it at
Yes.
Fifth Row just for fun. It was so much fun.
That's so
Um,
fun. Oh,
yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, I have this play that I've written with that's in development right now. I wrote it with Gabrielle Caruba, who's playing Zoe, who I'm sure you saw Zoe.
Shout out,
Who's
Queen.
brilliant. She'll be directing it, and it's really special and exciting. I also I've run a theater company for the last 6 years called Sneak Rock Productions on Long
Wow.
Island. We raise money for Next for Autism, which is an organization that helps people and families touched by autism with vocational opportunities and homes, and they're amazing. And so I have directed and things like that. So kind of everything is really the answer. I love doing it all. I want to pursue design more just because I feel like if you're going to direct, you got to know about design. And I know
Oh, yeah.
absolutely nothing about design. But yeah, writing, I always knew I could write music. I didn't know I could write like plays and things until I tried it this year and we wrote this play that I'm really, really excited to get out into the world when this is all over.
Wow.
I'm so excited too.
I'm genuinely so excited. Did the quarantine, did this pandemic stop its production? Like, were you like in the middle of kind of getting it out?
No, we've just kind of been taking each step as we go along. So we did a couple, like 2 readings and a rehearsal before quarantine. But since we've actually been working more even because I think we all just have more time. So we've done
Sure.
2 Zoom readings. We're doing another one in 2 weeks as well, some rehearsals and sending it to people to get some feedback. Um, so it's really exciting, and the cast we've assembled is bonkers good. So I'm really excited.
I'm so proud.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So proud.
It's a special, special project. I'm excited for people to hear more about it. There will be some more info about it soon, but we're not going to get it out into the world for a little while, obviously. But just to
Sure.
start drumming up some interest.
you just keep getting more inspiring. You just make it
Oh,
your own,
that's nice.
entertainment for everyone and making a lot of
Oh, I wrote a play, making an
Yeah.
album.
I can't. I don't know. I just have this thing where I can't be idle. I always have to be working on something, and either I'll put it out into the world or I won't. But I'm always just trying to make things.
Yeah. Another question. I know you're obviously like theater is like your love and one of your passions. Are you ever interested in going kind of into the movie realm or the TV realm? Possibly?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not picky. I think my biggest thing is stories and the story that's being told. It just has to be a story that I'm passionate about and that I'm passionate about telling and want to tell. Um, that could be movie, film, or Broadway or like theme park or whatever. I don't care as long as it's a story that means something.
Sure.
Absolutely. And one, yeah, exactly. One that makes a positive difference to the world.
Yeah, that's all I care about, and one that I feel I fit in and feels right that I'm telling it and that I have a reason to be telling it. I think that's all I care about.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Um, I know you're writing and stuff, and I saw this as one of the questions as one of the fans asked. Do you look up to, or I guess what I'm trying to say is like, who are your favorite like songwriters or writers in general?
Sure. I mean, my favorite composers are you got Pascal Paul, you got Jason Robert Brown. Those 2 guys are such huge influences on the music
Yeah.
that I write. Um, I mean, naturally because I've just been listening to Pascal Paul for the last year, but I still like I've just have been listening to Dogfight over the last couple of days. Um, and Jason Robert Brown, I mean, Bridges of Madison County is probably my favorite score. So, but then of course, you got like Sondheim and stuff, but I don't feel like I could ever do that, nor do I really have interest in doing it because it's just not my style. But I mean, all these composers have something to teach and something to be heard. I've just kind of been like absorbing theater for my whole life, so I just have this like everyone in theater, just this memory bank of like what this composer style is, and David Yazbek versus Andrew Lloyd Webber, just like random, just like okay, this person does this person does this, maybe I can do this. Um, so yeah, that in terms of like writers and stuff, those are my favorites.
Oh, nice. Good answer.
I'm glad.
Yeah, I know, it's cool. I mean, when you take all of those styles of all of those people that you just named, I mean, you'll definitely get something very special in there.
Yeah, it's a question of what do you get? What style is right for this? What style is right for that? Like I'm sort of working on a sort of musical right now that like okay, this song's a little bit more like bluegrass and then this song's a little bit more like metal. So like where do we, which I think every composer experiences of like okay, well that's how this story needs to be told and that's how this story needs to be told. But it's still always fascinating.
Right. Do
It's
you
also nice that
pick
you
first or the music?
good.
They usually kind of come at the same
Oh,
time for
okay.
me. I will sometimes write the music first. I think recently I've been writing the music first more, and then I'll say like, okay, well, what's a story that I want to tell? Oh, this song is good to tell that story. But usually they'll sort of like I'll write a verse and I'll write a verse musically and then I'll write a verse lyrically and then the rest will sort of come at the same time.
Wow.
Do you sit down to write songs, or are you just like, I don't know, maybe cooking in the kitchen or doing your hair and you're like, a lyric idea, gotta write that down?
It absolutely varies. Like the other night was like, there's a song that I'm trying to write right now that I just finished last night that I like was like, I sat down and I was like, I have nothing. And then last night I was just talking to my friends and I was like, wait, I have to mute myself to to finish writing the song. So it'll sort of vary. Um, it completely varies. Like sometimes I'll be in the shower and be like, oh wait a second, and then I have to get out of the shower and record it. But it's kind of all over the place. I don't really have a method of doing it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, creativity, you can't really
Force.
bind
Can't
it, I guess.
control it.
And you're overflowing with creativity, so it's constantly like your brain. I can't even imagine what it's like in your brain.
I'm definitely
You have
overflowing
so
with
much
something.
stuff going on. Okay, I think we're gonna do one more question from a fan. And this one, I will maybe one more. This question doesn't even have to do with the business. I'm just curious. It is, I completely lost it. Okay, there it is. It's if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh God.
After Dear Evan Hansen, pizza, but now it's
Yeah,
Pizza.
pizza.
boring.
Wow, that's tough. I think I kind of learned because one of the things I was eating every day when I was doing Dear Evan Hansen was sushi. That was something that I ate every single day because it's so good for like
Same.
avocado, and I would eat avocado, mango, and shrimp rolls. And like if you
That's
get it from the right
perfect.
place, they're always good. Um, so like I never really got tired of it. So I guess that's probably my answer.
You know what? It would be that's my answer too. Sushi is my all-time favorite food. Well,
Yeah,
favorite type of food.
I definitely haven't eaten it since doing Dear Evan Hansen because I'm like I don't think I can ever look at
Really?
this again. But actually, like it's very good, so I probably will pursue the sushi route sometime soon again. But truly, it was every day I was eating sushi.
Wow, that's awesome.
You know, what's kind of interesting about being in a show that I never anticipated personally myself was, like you said, your diet can be very restricted. You got to think about so many things because when you're in a show, any possible food, for some reason, I feel like the sensitivity to all different kinds of foods is really high.
Yeah,
So you have to make sure you eat enough, otherwise you don't want to feel faint on stage. But you also have to make sure you don't eat too much, otherwise you're going to feel sick on stage.
yep, yep,
And
yep,
you
yep,
have to make sure the foods that you eat make you feel good. It's just, it's really difficult to like kind of balance that, and also you can't eat dairy because of phlegm, and I always try to stay away from sugar because it would impact my breath control for some reason. I
I
don't know
remember
why.
Liz Kaplan told me like red meat and like heavy meats like steak or whatever, if you eat it before a show, you're digesting it, and that's energy you could be using to be running around and singing. So it's everything. I remember James Snyder, who is playing Harry Potter right now. He told me I never eat before part two of Harry Potter because I can't cry unless I have an empty stomach. That's what he said, which is very interesting because
Wow.
he was like if I'm full then I'm fine. I don't have anything to cry about, which is very
You
funny.
know what?
That's
I think
crazy.
I almost feel like I'm the same way. Oh, that's so weird. I never knew. That makes
I don't
sense
think
now.
I don't think I am the same way because if I'm hungry, I'm thinking about how I'm hungry. So
Oh,
I'll get very distracted.
then I get distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe I'm the same way as him. I don't know. I don't know. I also some do you have now you have to cry a lot and you had to cry a lot in Dear Evan
Yes.
Hansen. Did you have any tricks to cry?
It was, I think the biggest trick was learning that it's okay if I don't cry. That was the biggest trick, and it was really difficult to learn because I asked every Evan about, like, how do you cry? What do you do when you can't? What do you do? Like, can you ever not? And almost all of them said you have to forgive yourself for not crying because it's also really interesting if you don't, because it's like, why isn't he crying and why am I crying if he's not crying? Like, in the audience. So it's
Yeah.
it's it's all these things. But the reason why the precedent is set that we have to cry so much is because I asked Ben Platt and he said, I don't know, I just couldn't cry. Like, I don't really know how it happens. So it's all these. It was this major precedent that at the beginning I really wasn't crying. At the beginning of my run, there were no tears being had. Um, but then at the end, it was I just kind of started sometime in the middle of Act Two and then I didn't stop. That was kind of my way
Wow.
of making it
Wow.
happen, and just connecting to the story but not like thinking about it, like making sure you're invested but not thinking like, oh wow, I'm so sad I need to cry. It's you just gotta kind of let it happen, and at some point it became very much muscle memory for me.
Absolutely.
Some
Yeah, and also like taking that pressure off yourself can probably make it easier to cry as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That was when every time, like, if there was a night where I didn't cry during Words Fail, I'd be like, oh man, that was sucked, and then I would immediately start bawling in So Big So Small because I would just let it go. And it was always taking the pressure off made such a huge difference, and it was a huge lesson to learn.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What is some advice that like other Evans gave you?
Oh, there was so much. It was, well, okay, they didn't really give me advice on how to play the role at all because they know what a personal thing it is.
Hmm.
I think it was more advice on handling the fans and handling like the people that I would be meeting in the building, and the dietary stuff and things like that. It was a lot more the life that came with it and less actually playing the role, because I think now it's just, which is so amazing, that every Evan is just so different, and that is understood and accepted by all, because I think at the beginning they were really scared about Ben leaving the show, which is why it was so brilliant for them to cast Taylor, because he was incredible and the complete opposite of Ben.
Hmm.
So it was giving the permission. I'm so thankful that I went after Taylor and not Ben, because if I went after Ben, I would have been trying to be Ben. But because I
Hmm.
was after Taylor, I was like, okay, I can do whatever I want to do,
Hmm.
which was really, really the best permission to get. So it was a lot more about the world and less about the actual performance.
That's awesome.
Were you oh uh, maybe that's the wrong word, but were you like nervous or overwhelmed by the prospect of, you know, taking a role that, someone else started with and then
Absolutely.
coming in after the fact? Like, there's a balance between making it yourself, but, also not completely changing it so people are like, "Whoa."
Yeah, no, I mean, especially because he's like Ben freaking Platt, like it
I've
was
been
like
freaking
Who is
black,
that?
yeah.
he he
Yeah.
he won a Tony for it. It was this legendary, iconic performance that I loved so much. So to go in, and I knew I wanted to do something different with it. I just didn't know, it was just making it more me was what I learned. But I think, from Ben to Taylor, you have a major shift on what that character was and could be. So I think I landed somewhere in the middle, if there is a spectrum, but I don't really think there is. I think it's just completely different. Um,
It's you.
yeah, exactly. So it was, yes, but the pressure was there every day, especially because I think the fans really love to rank and play favorites and pick their favorites. And I was really aware of that because I was a fanson. So I sort of was cognizant of that the whole time, which was totally terrifying. But it was the days where I'd let it go and say, like, okay, one person's opinion does not change anything. Because I'm got reviewed well. I'm doing this, like, everything is going well. I can't let one mean comment on the internet
Yeah, I mean, you got the
get to me.
role. I mean,
Exactly, and that was something that I always would remind myself of, like, I'm here for a reason. It was tough, but it was those were the best days when I could just sort of let it go.
yeah.
Aw.
It's awesome that you like bring up Taylor because we're actually gonna be interviewing him soon.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's cool to know that he had a big impact on you and
oh my God, he's one of my favorite people on the planet Earth. He is so so lovely, so lovely. I love him so much.
oh,
Aw.
what a
He is.
bromance.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's no. He's
Gold.
he's amazing. Him and Ben Ross, who he's dating, it was Evan on tour, and
Ooh.
they like are
No way.
just amazing and amazing together, and I love them both so much.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, they're wonderful, wonderful people. All the Evans are.
Speaking of that, you passed the polo on to Jordan Fisher.
That's right.
Um, so you know how you said that kind of all the Evans before you gave you advice on how to, the fans and dietary restrictions and yeah, all that stuff. Did you have any memorable conversations with Jordan about the role?
Um, So many, but I think Jordan just kind of came in with this idea of what he wanted it to be, and he knew exactly what he wanted because he loved the show so much too. He saw Ben. I don't remember if he saw Noah. I think he did see Noah. I don't think he saw Taylor, and then he saw me, like at the very beginning of my run. So he had this idea of what he wanted it to be, and then he did it, and that is amazing. He's phenomenal, but he's just lovely and wonderful, and we're close, and we've had so many conversations of just us completely loving on each other. He's amazing. But yeah, we had lots of conversations about what the role was and what were the tougher parts and what would be the tougher things. But I think more again about the world and just kind of being like, okay, well, this is part of the routine, and this is something that I'd recommend. Uh, he honestly, he did it all. He did so much of it, just
Yeah,
going in blind and knowing exactly what he
For
wanted to
sure.
do.
it's
Yeah.
so
And
cool what the creatives did with that because I mean the people you just named. I mean, what a group of Evans that you're in this category with, and they're all on top of being insanely talented. They're all incredibly humble and like down to earth people, and
Oh
they
yeah.
seem like the nicest people.
What was kind of incredible about Jordan coming in is there was a time where every Evan in the building, Jordan, the alternate, every understudy was a person of color.
Oh
That
wow.
was
wow.
incredible, and was like unheard of, unthought of for the show. It was really, really incredible, and I'm just so happy that was a thing. I think there's now an understudy that's white, which is obviously great. That's great for him. But it's just amazing that this story can be told in so many different ways,
Right.
um, and it shifts the story completely. So I'm excited to see where else that journey goes, because this story can be told in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that they're really doing their best to try and uh, to bring in people who will represent a lot of different kind of categories.
Absolutely.
You were brought in, you were the first teenager to ever do it,
Hmm.
and everyone is so different in their own way, and yeah, no, it's really good and important. It sets a standard for other Broadway shows to um, to prioritize representation.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. And also, something that you were talking about was it's very important as Dear Evan Hansen to love the role.
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that all of the Evan Hansens have done. I remember I was doing Secret Garden with Ben Platt, and he was in the off-Broadway run of Dear Evan Hansen at this time, and we were rehearsing our Mary and Dickens song together, and he turned to me. He was like, "Hey, I'm doing this show. It's called Dear Evan Hansen." I go, "Oh, cool." And he goes, I really love it. That this music is amazing. The songs are amazing, and I just really fell in love with the part." I'm like, "Oh, cool. I'll check it out sometime." And look at it now.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think what they knew was that they couldn't replicate Ben, so they cast Taylor, and now you can't replicate Taylor. And you
Yeah,
can't replicate Noah, you can't replicate
I
me, you
can't.
can't replicate
Yeah,
Jordan, because it is so personal that it has to be, there has to be things that only this actor can do. And that's what's really amazing about the nature of the role.
For sure.
yeah,
And the same with the understudies too. Every understudy has their own agency. You can't replicate Rowan Banks, Josh Strobel, Sam Primick, all these amazing guys. You can't. Nobody else can do what they did, which is what is so amazing about the role and why it's so needless to compare, because there is no comparison to be made.
shout out to understudies, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
seriously.
Dear Evan Hansen understudies are absolute rock stars. All understudies are, but geez, those guys. There are so many people in that cast covering all three roles, all three male roles. Yeah, it's crazy. I love them. They became such a family to me during all that. They were so supportive and wonderful, because that's sort of where all the young people are, because in the cast it's you four, kids and four adults, but in the understudy room there were just a bunch of kids, and we just had such a great time, and I always thanked them for always saying yes and to my dumb ideas, because we made all these silly dumb videos when I was doing like the Broadway.com vlogs and stuff like that
Oh,
that they were just always down to do, and I love them so much.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I love people like
They're
that.
very
me
special.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the best.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew. This has been so informative and a blast. You are an absolute gem, and you're brilliant as well. And,
Thank you.
talking to
Harvard, not
you,
big
you're
deal.
so smart. What?
I know he's going to Harvard. Like,
He's
brilliant.
going to Harvard. And beyond that, just the way that you think and
For sure.
just the way that you speak, you're brilliant.
Thank you
And
guys very
alongside, you're
much.
humble and you're kind and you're warm and you're
You're a
loving
very
and you're
special
talented. Oh
person.
my gosh.
Yeah.
That all means so much to me. Thank you guys so
Of
much. It's very
course.
kind.
We thank you for your time and giving us an hour to talk. It
Yeah,
means a
thank you guys
lot.
so much for having me. This is amazing what you guys are doing here to entertain people. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.